Look, I think that the 3 offerings we've gone after in the 21A report make it pretty clear to people what we think is permissible and not permissible. And responsible people, including yourself, I think agree with the way we've outlined the way the law applies to this market.
Absolutely.
I have not seen many people disagree with the way the law applies to this market.
I have not seen many people disagree with the way the law applies to this market.
If this market continues as it is, those will not be the last enforcement actions.
If this market continues as it is, those will not be the last enforcement actions
that we bring. That's the way it works. You know, I would love to see people start trying to come into compliance, having seen now where the law is clearly, clearly should be driving them. But if they're not, you'll see many more enforcement actions.
But if they're not, you'll see many more enforcement actions.
Jay, let me ask you about something that it winds up in my Twitter feed constantly. I've tried to look into it and done a little research on it. There's this argument about an action that the SEC brought on your last day as the chair of the SEC. This was the one to go after Ripple Labs executives, the CEO, the general counsel, and others. You and others at the SEC were compromised in this decision. That you had input that was coming in from people who are maybe Ethereum fans or others along the way. I get this question constantly. I just want to put it to you. What happened and what do you say to those accusations?
Well, Becky, I'm not going to comment on. I think as government officials, you do the best you can. You let the facts stand where they are. And
cryptocurrencies. These are replacements for sovereign currencies. Replace the dollar, the yen, the euro with Bitcoin. That type of currency is not a security.
And so the general guidance has come out of the SEC that Bitcoin in its quote-unquote present state and Ether in its quote-unquote present state are not operating as securities.
Like ICOs, is it something that you anticipated at all? That, at one point this could happen?
The Ethereum crowd sale itself was kind of an ICO, and then there were sales before that.
So you're purposely not doing it in Canada, and you're purposely not doing it in the U.S.
A large part of that is regulatory reasons.
About 3 months ago, Bill Hinman, Director of Corporate Finance of the SEC in the U.S., spoke in San Francisco. He said Ether was not a security, but...
In 2014, I had the Ethereum team in Zug, and they were explaining me about the new methods of collecting funds for a decentralized ecosystem, which finally launches a token which has no counterparty rights embedded. And I would never had imagined at that time in 2014 that actually we did the first initial coin offer ever in the world, that it would be such a development. So that's the reason why we decided, when we were setting up the Ethereum Foundation and we organized the pre-sale for Ethereum, that was the reason why we decided for the foundation structure.
Gratified by Director Hinman's words a few days ago. I was at that event in Santa Fe. Sorry?
Yeah, overall.
So a while ago, Chairman Clayton said something nice about Bitcoin, and then Director Hinman said something very nice about Ether. Yep. It's not a security. He also said a lot of things about these networked business models that are held together in terms of the business logic and incentivization mechanisms by tokens. And so essentially we build systems. We have something called Token Foundry that helps our own projects internally to launch those systems, third-party projects, and these tokens represent incentivized mechanism design. The mechanism design enables system designers to define a set of goals, set up some rules and then rely on game theoretic selfishness of all the different actors pursue their own interests and the system goals are achieved. So you do that all right and well.
You do that all right and well.
And it works out beautifully.
We didn't call it that. We called it a utility token sometimes, but that it would not be considered a security. That you weren't buying shares.
And they went after people that they didn't think, like, who pays you? Like they never thought that, 60,000 coin holders would actually come together, communicate, and formulate some sort of defense against this. They thought they were going after a soft target and that they were going to create some case law that was going to change the crypto landscape. And then you came in and you took a dump on their front lawn.
If you file this lawsuit, it calls into question the commission's discretion. And so what happens? Jay Clayton votes for the lawsuit. The two Democrats vote for it. The lawsuit's filed. They all leave. Jay Clayton goes to One River, Bitcoin and Ether. And Bill Hinman now works. He's a partner with the Ether investors who helped write the speech that gave Ether a free pass. Coinbase in January of 2019 goes to the SEC and says, look, our securities lawyers have decided that XRP is not a security. We want to list it. What do you say, SEC? SEC doesn't say anything. And then on the last day, you've got, on a 3-2 vote, who does Clayton go with? He goes with the two Democrats, even though he's a Republican. Votes to file the suit against Ripple as he's walking out the door. Bill Hinman was deposed. Ripple was successful in getting him deposed. Of course, they redact everything to the public. And I have it here if you want to see it.
How much is redacted?
Ethereum, 90%.
Can I see?
He's asked questions like, have you ever worked for Ethereum Foundation? Look at the answers.
Look at the redactions.
All right, and this isn't the whole, this isn't
Look at this.
This isn't the whole lawsuit.
Dude, are you kidding me? So
absolutely.
So I don't know if people can see this, but this
pages of that.
This is an entire page of every single word on the page redacted, and there's pages of it.
This is your transparent Securities Exchange Commission.
Holy moly.
Both of you, Bill and Jay, why are you doing this?
Well, I don't know why Bill's doing it, but I sure am glad he is.
Well, for me, I think the primary reason was Jay asked me to do it. I was sort of toward the end of my career. My entire career had been in private practice and had done that for 37 years. And knowing that Jay was going to be heading the SEC and had the agenda that he had.
The Hinman speech with Ethereum, which I know riled the markets again, right? Because he was effectively saying that when it came out, it was a security, but then it became decentralized over time. Yeah, the standards, again, it's just like I said, I mean, the standards aren't clear. But one thing was clear, Joe, to your point, there was a pretty declarative statement. Bitcoin is not a security. Ethereum's not. Sorry to touch a sensitive point, but XRP is.
And so the general guidance has come out of the SEC that Bitcoin in its quote-unquote present state and Ether in its quote-unquote present state are not operating as securities because they seem to be without central third parties and they're highly decentralized networks. The issue of the moment is, of course, what is XRP? It runs on the Ripple network. There are a lot of people in this audience who would like to know, but I think it's I know from long-standing practice, the SEC does not talk about matters that are in front of them at the moment. Because as you know, Ripple right now is the second largest market cap token after Bitcoin.
I think I'll go back to what I said, is that we are open to people coming in to see us, engage with us, discuss their particular situation.
So you're purposely not doing it in Canada, and you're purposely not doing it in the U.S.
A large part of that is regulatory reasons.
Okay.
Significance of liquidity to the XRP market, the withdrawal of intermediaries, the exchanges, will most likely cause billions of dollars of losses to innocent third-party holders. The result, to my knowledge, be unprecedented. He goes on to say, I am aware of no instance in which the simple announcement of a commission enforcement proceeding has, absent allegations of fraud, misrepresentation, or omission, caused multi-billion-dollar losses to innocent third parties. You're not alleging fraud. Basically, what he's saying is that if you file this case, it's going to cause more damages to innocent people than any case that's a non-fraud case in the history of the United States Securities Exchange Commission. That's what Joseph Grunfest is saying. And guess what happened? $15 billion was lost. People got wiped out. Notice the term innocent holders of XRP. That means people that don't even know Ripple exists, people who've never heard of Brad Garlinghouse or Chris Larson. That's who he's talking about. And they did not care. A mass exodus of every senior staffer responsible for a major enforcement decision with broad policy implications is, to my knowledge, unprecedented in agency history. What's the next line? It raises obvious concerns. This is Joseph Grunfest saying what we've all been saying. There's no rational reason for you to do this. So it raises obvious concerns. What are those obvious concerns? Conflicts of interest, appearances of impropriety, self-dealing. That's what those concerns are.
Perhaps we've just forgotten that we are still pioneers, that we've barely begun, and that our greatest accomplishments cannot be behind us, because our destiny lies above us.
As institutions, we have an obligation to all members of society, and particularly to those whose voices are not heard, to the poor, to the most vulnerable, to those who are lonely and who bear a burden that clearly requires the help of others. So it is with that in mind that we are adopting and embarking on this new strategy. And I would like, by way of closing, to mention somebody who really liked the ILO in those days, and that's Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Great friend and supporter of the ILO at the time. Now, he may have been quoted already 10,000 times in the last week, but I will not refrain nonetheless. He said, "The test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much. It is whether we provide enough to those who have too little. It's not just ethically right, it's economically justified."
If I could save time in a bottle, the first thing that I'd like to do is to save every day till eternity passes away. just to spend them with you. If I could make days last forever, if words could make wishes come true, I'd save every day like a treasure, and then again I would spend them with you. But there never seems to be enough time to do the things you want to do once you find them. I looked around enough to know you're the one I want to go through time with.
So I mean, it's kind of chicken and egg. You have to create a marketplace. And right now, we have about 150, 200 exchanges around the world that trade in XRP. A lot of it, as you say, is very shallow trading by individuals. And that is not the use case that we are pursuing. What we are pursuing is the use of XRP as a financial asset by sophisticated institutions as a bridging mechanism. So does this hurt or harm? Well, it creates a lot of noise. And we certainly don't want that much noise, but we're waiting. And for example, this last quarter, the bulk of XRP sales were to institutional investors. And as this transitions away from retail to institutions who will start to use it for wholesale, financial usage, that's when the turning point will come.
Got it. Like, how do you intend to distribute the rest of the XRP then?
Yeah, no, that's a good question here, and I don't necessarily know that we'll ever distribute all of it. In my mind's eye, there's a possibility where, we end up more of a lending kind of, more of a lender of last resort capacity maybe. I think that would be a little strange for a software company, and maybe some things would have to change structurally. Maybe we have to have a different organization or something, who knows, right? But as these capital markets develop, as liquidity develops, there are going to be folks who, if they want to provide liquidity in the asset, don't want to necessarily own the asset, because that puts them in harm's way for price movements. So if you can borrow the asset and create liquidity that way, it's actually a much more efficient way to be part of the liquidity mechanism. It's how traditional capital markets work. I mean, my first job on a trading desk was managing the repo book, the overnight Tom Next kind of liquidity provision that every day we had to roll. There's nothing like that in digital assets. So partly because the transfers happen instantaneously, but also partly because it just hasn't developed. And it's one of my longer term goals. After I get the ecosystem built out, after I get payments running through there, as I start to merge or try to merge the two worlds, the digital asset markets and traditional capital markets, as I try to do that, I think one of the levers that we'll be able to pull will be lending. And as a result, I don't necessarily know that we'll need some XRP, right, in order to do that. So I guess a long-winded way of saying, I'm not sure we'll ever get rid of all of it and sort of let it all out into the wild, partly because there is some utility for us or maybe some other, organization having it to make sure that the markets are always liquid.
Swift, and do you see a world where your technology will integrate with Swift or replace Swift, or what? How does that work? Because that seems to be the heart of, that's how banks transact with each other at the moment.
Right, thank you for the question. So I see a world where absolutely distributed ledgers will need to integrate with existing frameworks, processes, and networks like Swift. And one of the things we're looking at in particular is, for example, how we move assets onto a distributed ledger. For example, originating with, if you like, a real-world payment. How we move assets off the distributed ledger back into the real world. For example, by instructing a Swift MT 101 or 103 or something. So absolutely, interoperability with those existing networks is going to be key.
No, I agree completely.
Ripple could take over Swift one day?
Well, I think what we're doing and executing on a day-by-day basis is in fact taking over Swift. In that, we've now signed up, well over 100 banks. Some of the largest Swift-enabled banks in the world are now using Ripple's technology. Just last week we saw a remittance company who's using Ripple's technology. They reduced the price per transaction to their consumers from $20 per transaction to $2 per transaction, and they saw an 800% increase in usage overnight. That's the type of dynamic that Swift isn't able to support that we're able to address right now, and that's something we saw just in the last couple of weeks. So we certainly want to see banks succeed in this new world order, and take advantage of these technologies. To the extent we can work with Swift to do that, then that's great.
So Tim, we went from like 0 to 20,000, back to 4,000, now back to 10,000. Is anything different this time around?
I think what's different is, first of all, you've shaken out a lot of weak players. You've shaken out a lot of the momentum. You've certainly gone further down the road in terms of institutional follow through. You've certainly had major banks in the world talk about their own blockchain platforms. You've had a dynamic where money's become freer than free. Gold's been rallying. Why shouldn't Bitcoin be rallying?
Yeah. I agree with you. I think that last part, if you talk about a Fed just gone nuts as Guy thinks it has, or all the central banks going nuts, that's part of the bull case for Bitcoin, plus institutional interest as well.
Yeah, but listen, so we got rates lower, we got gold up, we got utilities up, we got Bitcoin up, so it's all acting like safe haven. That just takes me back to the MAGA trade, what's going on there. That just seems very bifurcated in this market where they're doing that heavy lifting, but these other things that we identify as safe haven assets have really perked up in 2020.
Possible coronavirus impact here. I know a lot of the buyers come from that part of the world, and you wonder if they're looking to protect their money, maybe hiding it in Bitcoin.
Perhaps, but I do think, to Karen's point, I believe that in a world where central bankers are tripping over themselves to devalue their currency, Bitcoin wins. In the world of fiat currencies, Bitcoin is the victor.
It's open.
Hello.
Beth, it's so good to meet you. I've so enjoyed our conversations at Mr. Jacobs. Please, come in.
So Ripple received its stash of XRP when it was founded. The original creators of the XRP ledger gifted their XRP to the company, and the company holds right now something like on the order of 65 billion XRP. To provide some predictability in the supply of XRP, Ripple has taken 55 billion of those XRP and locked them in an on-ledger escrow. And that essentially behaves kind of like a smart contract. It releases the XRP at a predictable rate that's greater than the rate at which Ripple has been using XRP in the past. We don't anticipate that that's going to correlate to any increase in the rate at which we use XRP, just from the fact that the release rate is higher. Before, we had no restrictions. So adding restrictions certainly wouldn't be expected to increase that release rate. And the plan is that when there's leftover XRP at the end of each month, we'll just lock it back into an escrow, releasing the first month in which there is no escrow. The escrow doesn't really have a counterparty. To the extent that there's a counterparty, it is the XRP ledger. It behaves very much like a smart contract. The ledger feature that it uses is called escrow, and it's also useful for sort of secure payments where you lock XRP up to be released to someone when they meet some condition. So our escrows just don't have any condition except a certain time passing, and after that time the XRP releases. And that provides some level of predictability in the release of the XRP supply. But it also ensures that Ripple has an incentive to promote the stability of the network and the utility over the long term.
All right, so
Treasury Secretary Mnuchin here today testifying about the President's fiscal year 2021 budget.
Thank you very much, Chairman Grassley, Ranking Member Wyden, and members of the committee. I'm pleased to be here with you today to discuss the President's budget and the Treasury Department's top priorities.
Yes, well, I believe that to them, quite possibly, time is one moment.
So if the first machine was a tether, then what does the new machine do?
To a distinct topic, but a really important one, and it's the emergence of cryptocurrency and the challenges that creates for the United States government in various ways. So these technological advancements in the increasing interconnectedness of our world financial institutions is addressed in the President's budget.
Well, I believe the new machine will allow them, for lack of a better word, access to our dimension. Think of it as if they are watching a video cassette, and we are the characters in that story, and we can move from the beginning through the middle to the end. We can only experience things as such. The first machine was the remote, with which they could jump around at any point and watch the story.
Proponents of crypto believe it can benefit the everyday consumer by lowering transaction costs for online purchases and increasing protection from identity theft and breaking down various financial barriers.
But they couldn't affect us. They couldn't alter. They couldn't interact. But I believe this new machine will enable them to reach. And the closer we get to the machine's activation, the stronger we're feeling its effects. They're becoming more present. The effects of the machine are rippling. As soon as the machine is activated, the time is bleeding.
How does your department, Mr. Secretary, plan to respond to this rapidly evolving technology of cryptocurrency and other digital assets?
Well, thank you. And as you've commented, we're very supportive of bringing the Secret Service back home to the Treasury where it started and the efficiencies of having it together. We're spending a lot of time on the issue of cryptocurrencies and digital payment systems. It's a crucial area. And there's a lot of different things that get grouped together into this one area. So let me just be brief. But on pure cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, and there are others, we want to make sure that these are not used as the equivalent of secret bank accounts. So we are working with FinCEN, and we will be rolling out new regulations to be very clear on greater transparency so that law enforcement can see where the money is going and that this isn't used for money laundering. There is another component of the market which people refer to as stable coins, where we do think technology can be used to reduce payment processing quite considerably, particularly for small dollar payments cross-border. And then there's a third component that people are looking at, which is central bank digital issued currency. That is something that Chair Powell and I do not think the U.S. needs to consider now, but could consider again down the road.
Backwards, there's an overflow of effects moving out to the future and to the past. The closer we get to that moment, the more concentrated the ripples are, the more powerful they become.
The Fed's real-time payment system, as you may recall, I was never convinced that this was a great idea for the Fed to pursue this, since we have a private sector system in place, up and running, and really encouraged by the Fed back in the day. But I get the Board of Governors has made its decision. Here's my question for you. A number of constituents have expressed the concern that we're going to end up with two systems that are not fully interoperable. And to the extent that employers and financial institutions and other participants would be plugged into different systems, if they are not fully interoperable, there's a real concern that that is going to, at a minimum, diminish the ability to innovate in these systems going forward. So I guess I'm wondering if you could just briefly, because I do have several other topics, just address the question of whether it is a priority of the Fed to ensure that the FedNow system will be fully interoperable with the clearinghouse system.
I think full interoperability is the goal. It will be challenging to reach it, but it's high on our priorities to assure interoperability. It's something we're very focused on in the design stage.
Everything about them so fascinating, so mysterious. Like the encryptions, for example. What about them? Well, your solution to the decryption was different to Beth's, which was different to mine. How can that be? They know nothing of our reality. How can they encrypt something for us to decipher? It's no. They put something out there that was different for each of us.
Mr. Secretary, how will the Treasury's proposed budget increases assist the Department in monitoring suspicious cryptocurrency transactions and prosecuting terrorists and other criminal organizations financing illicit activities with cryptocurrency?
Well, first of all, thank you, and thank the committee for the generous support on us funding increases in these areas over the last several years. We've really built up a very dedicated career staff. And specifically on cryptocurrencies, we are spending a lot of time on this on both an interagency basis and with the regulators. We're about to roll out some significant new requirements at FinCEN. We want to make sure that technology moves forward, but on the other hand, we want to make sure that cryptocurrencies aren't used for the equivalent of old Swiss secret number bank accounts. So we share your concerns, and you'll be seeing a lot of work coming out very quickly.
Well, thank you, and I would look forward to continuing to work with you about that.
Yet always came to the same result. It's quite embarrassing, because I can't even begin to explain that. That's why ARIST hired multiple cryptographers. Oh, and I have another theory. I don't think it was radiation that caused our little friends here. No, they are rather physical side effects of altering our perception of reality. Yes, like a challenging puzzle.
We do not move to add digitization to the dollar as a feature of those timeless historical properties of currency. I worry a lot that a digital yuan could ultimately replace the reserve currency, just as we replaced the pound in the last century. So, Ms. Shelton, could you talk to us a little bit about what you on the Federal Reserve Board and what the Federal Reserve as a whole could do to help protect the dollar's reserve currency, and especially address the need to have digitization as a potential property of the dollar?
Thank you, Senator Cotton. I think that's an extremely important discussion, and I agree with your assessment. I think we're compelled to think about that. The dollar is the most important instrument of soft power that we have around the world. And yes, it is the dominant reserve currency, but we can't rest on our laurels in that regard because, as you suggested, rival nations are working very diligently to have an alternative to the dollar. And while they can't beat us as a currency, they can add features because there is a demand for digital access to banking services, to payments. And I think it's very important that we get ahead of the curve to ensure that the dollar continues to offer the best currency in the world, the most respected, the most utilized, and we need fintech innovation to keep us going in the right direction and to be a leader instead of passively observing what other countries might do.
These ripples we are feeling are likely from an event that has already happened. As you know, the machine's activation may already have happened some point in our future.
System readings are fluctuating, becoming irregular. There's some strange light coming in from all around up ahead. Oh wow, this is incredible. The void is starting to destroy everything. Here we go.
In all of time, we are losing your transmissions on all the planets of all the galaxies in space. What civilizations have risen, looked into the night, seen what we see,